Three, two, one, and we're on for another episode of
Good.
Danny and
Good.
Troy show.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's about inspiration today.
what's that?
Yeah, that's chocolate. My
Yeah,
source of
right.
inspiration. Yeah,
Wow.
you know? Yeah. Not much I. And then of course, my favorite Polish chocolate. Light suck. Right? You know what this is an alien body part, you know. Talked
Yeah.
about that before. But we're gonna have a dirty session one of these days. Adults only, but
Sure.
it's gonna be really hard to find an adult.
There's still some
What are
left,
you gonna do?
some chocolate. Is that the chocolate that
Left?
was in there?
No, that's a bar chocolate, which this is
Right. Yeah. Wow. It's heaps.
and that's half of it. This is great chocolate. I love Russian chocolate best of all. I love Swiss chocolate. American chocolate is like not so great about it. Then there's Belgian chocolate, which is Godiva.
Right.
Swiss, they said, you know, Germans, they lint, they just pump the stuff out. And they couldn't do it without their, you can't call them colonies. Let's call them trade partners, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, so we have chocolate. It's great. And the name of this chocolate is Magnat, which means, of course, magnet.
Okay.
And it's cherry, hazelnut, raspberry, pralines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds exotic.
Oh, it is. It is. It's great. So you were saying.
Yeah. I've just been, I guess, still recovering from COVID. But feeling
you?
a lot better. Me. Yeah. So what's going on in my life right now is still here in Bhutan, tidy a few things up, but hugely delayed with COVID in terms of lockdowns, and then ended up getting COVID. But yeah, feeling like I'm on the end of that now.
Was it free or did you have to pay for it? Cherished Bhutanese COVID.
I guess in some ways
Buddhist
I had to
COVID.
Yeah, not financially, but had to pay up in terms of what did it ask of me? To stay in bed and not get all things done that I thought I needed to get done. So yeah, in some ways I paid the price, but I was talking, I'm not sure if we were recording the last time I was talking about this, but the high that you get from the low, I mean, life really is a roller coaster, up and down. And it's not until you feel that down parts of the, unwell, that for me anyway, I start to appreciate what it is that I have when I'm fully healthy and feeling well. So in that sense, I feel I'm coming out of the trough and on my way up and starting to enjoy the not feeling ill part of life. So
that won't last long, because then you'll get used to feeling good and you'll forget all about feeling bad.
That's right.
And you won't focus on your health anymore. Then you'll be focusing on money, and things like that.
Exactly. But yeah.
How it goes. Then you've got to induce sickness in yourself again in order to appreciate in order to appreciate being well.
Right.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle. So actually, I mentioned just a second ago, to help people appreciate what it is you're going through, because you set up business, data. Well, it was started off data scientists, but now datalogical services in Bhutan, in Thimphu.
Yes.
shortly after you and I had met in Faro for a happiness conference. And
Yeah.
then you went into the Timphu Tech Park because you had, what was it, tax advantages and blah, blah, blah. Just
Yes.
tell people, to give them an appreciation of what a guy like you can do when you're not sick, I mean, of course.
Yeah. So Bhutan, I guess, I established a fascination. Let me try and get my words out this morning. A fascination with Bhutan and a curiosity around gross national happiness, their national metric for measuring well-being of the nation. And as a data scientist, I just wanted to learn more about how they actually did that, and built up my curiosity to the point that I decided to invest in Bhutan through an FDI, so foreign direct investment program that they have here, which you didn't have to, but if you did involve the Timphu Tech Park, you gained assistance. And yeah, in the early stages, this in 2017, when I went through it, yeah, the CEO at the time, who's now moved on, Sring Sige, yeah, really helped in terms of promoting the FDI program and how to set up a company at Tech Park. And I just, yeah, I went along with that and enjoyed the digital nomad lifestyle of coming to Bhutan, working in the mountains and looking out the window at the trees and the free flowing rivers, and at the same time wanted to exchange my knowledge and my understanding of data science. So I always had an open door for young or old Bhutanese, didn't matter, that wanted to learn data science and come in and sit while I work. I gave a lot of interns some things to do, and at one point we had a kind of a workforce of 15 local Bhutanese, but yeah, it didn't work out. That we, from one reason or another, the Bhutanese would just move on, and the projects that we did have kind of dried up, if that's the right word, but there was a big issue around expectations of what delivering data science, kind of introducing data science at the same time getting the results that the clients here in Bhutan kind of had was yeah, there was a big mismatch in terms of what they thought they could get, and especially for the amount of money. I mean, I have other international projects going on. Not that I'm driven or focused around money, but that I need to make things sustainable. And it was, of course, at some level, it's fine to give away and work for free, but at some point it just becomes very well not sustainable. And but right now, yeah, we're starting kind of a new phase. We've still got the company going, but I'm moving out of the tech park, just downgrading the kind of aspect of the projects that are going on here in Bhutan, and of course being impacted by COVID as well, and not being able to travel back and forth between Australia and Bhutan. But yeah, at this point, it's really to shift it from me being very kind of proactive and saying, okay, well, who's the Bhutanese that want to be data scientists? Okay, you come and I'll help. And okay, here's a project, I'm going to work on it. To okay, let's do my own thing. So I'm just doing my own thing. I mean, I love Bhutan. It's a beautiful country. and beautiful culture, and gross national happiness, in terms of the paradigm is still there to kind of explore and discover and to meditate on and to make a part of my heart and mind as I move forward. But it's been a struggle. It's been a very big roller coaster ride, talking about ups and downs, but it's still
And
going
ins and
on.
outs.
That's right. Yeah. So
And that was meant in a very different way, but of course, it also means the amount of complications that you faced in terms of being allowed to be there, right?
sure.
Not just COVID nonsense, but
Mm-hmm.
wanting to come and stay and do nice things for people
Mm-hmm.
who, and I'm, of course, I'm interjecting here, who expect you, like all the rest of the people around them who principally work for the government, right? In one way or another, with some small business, selling fruit or peppers by the road or whatever, isn't really an environment. Here I go, I'm going to introduce the word. Not a very inspirational environment outside of, the tourist aspects
Sure.
of finding something new, assigning this what constitutional democracy or monarchy actually, with the possibility that the world and people are moving in this happy direction, and realizing that let sleeping dogs lie, tongue in cheek there, right? Because you have to go slow on the roads. You might find a dog asleep in the middle of the road and you don't want to disturb it, really and truly. And of course, like I said, the environment and its history is inspiring, which we'll talk about what that word means, to a point, right?
Sure.
I mean, is it the kind of question is, would you, once you've been there, would you want to go back? I know this Dutch couple, right, who were there for like 15 years and built up this huge business. And then one day they decided not to renew their visa. And it was like, why? And they never got an answer. Right. So these expectations that we have as outsiders sort of set us up as suckers. Well, you're here, you must be able to afford it. It's like being in Russia. It's like, who's got money? That's the guy who's going to pay. I mean, the other people may have money too, but they're not going to say anything. And you got wheels turning. It's like, should I tell them I just got paid or whatever? And, it gets very, very complicated. And it's no less complicated, as I understand, in Bhutan, because it's like, okay, there's the cage, right? It's hanging from a mountainside and it's called the tiger's nest and blah, blah, la, 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 la. It's got some la, la more than la, la does in Los Angeles.
Right.
And then you realize that, you're setting up a board meeting and people bring their water bill. And part of me being on your board means that you have to pay my water bill. And if you don't, I'm not being on your board. So, it sounds like a real kind of intense political, greedy capital underbelly in the nation of gross national happiness. So you've got this distance, and here I am speaking for you now, got this distance between reality and dreamland or interpretation, or where I think this should go, and so on and so on. And I want to ask you at this point in time, what was it that inspired you to go there? And what was it that inspired you to leave?
Yeah.
I think we can speak about both sides of that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the inspiration, I mean, yeah, G&H or gross national happiness or happiness in general, I think, you know, it has that kind of image of, and when the fourth king kind of mentioned the words gross national happiness as an alternative to GDP, gross domestic product, as a way of measuring the well-being of a nation, back in, it was in 1970s, I think he was onto something in terms of, yeah, looking at a more holistic way of measuring or considering all the components and complexities that are involved. And I mean, the classic saying is like, if you cut down all the trees and sold them, of course, you'd increase gross domestic product, but what would you do in terms of environmental and impact on the country, and what would that have an effect on the people? But yeah, when it came to it, and when I explored it and kind of jumped on it, and this is not just me, but we have organizations like Center of Bhutan Studies and digging into gross national happiness, coming up with metrics. I think they got about 30 or 35, between 30 and 35 different indexes and metrics of how to measure happiness, and, you know, 9 domains and 4 pillars. But the more and more they dug into it, the further away they got from this concept, of which I think should remain in people's hearts and minds, rather than just trying to measure it. And they do that, like, I think every maybe 4 years they do a survey, and the feedback I got from the people, what do you think of the gross national happiness survey? It's like, oh, it's such a pain, you know, it creates unhappiness because they're trying to measure happiness. But yeah, it is inspiring, and that's what brought me to Bhutan, the curiosity of what's going on. And I do believe it's a great concept to have in terms of just going about your daily business. Just think about, you know, what's important. And if you want to label it happiness, then, you know, that's a word we can use, but it's really about purpose, fulfillment, enjoyment, these aspects of and what we were talking about yesterday, consciousness, conscious decisions to put in yourself about, you know, how you're going to go about your daily business or day-to-day business. And we have that power actually as an individual to decide whether or not we're going to be taking today with a mindset of happiness, or a mindset of the opposite of happiness, and say, you know, how bad my life is, and oh my God, I've got COVID, and, you know, feeling terrible. And I mean, those aspects don't need to be ignored, but still you can take it in the light that, you know, thank God I'm alive. I've got the sun shining, the birds are singing, and yeah, have things to accomplish. And these are the objectives that we set as an individual for myself, and the process that I want to move through. So as a whole, this is things that are an inspiration to me. And, you know, it may not be, I mean, I know people that just don't get inspired by the same things as me, and that's fair enough. But for myself, this is a path that I find inspiring, and I want to bring more of these positive aspects or aspects of joy, fulfillment, and purpose into my daily life, and that's what kind of drew me to Bhutan, and will keep bringing me back. Yes, I'm downscaling. So to the second point, kind of why am I downscaling? I think the inspiration there is around I want to achieve and do things that have huge impact in the world and my community and for myself individually. And I think in some ways, and I use this analogy in the past and quite often, is that, sitting in a cave as a monk, I've had friends and I've met people, really inspiring people themselves, that have decided to block out society and just go sit in the cave for 3 years. There's, it's something
You could go to university and get the same result, right?
Well,
sit in a chair for 3 years. Yeah, all right. Now what?
Yeah, but I think in some ways I don't want to, and in some ways I'm here in Bhutan kind of sitting in a little cave. But when I was in the cave, I was like, and there's someone else, hey buddy, let's do this. And they're like, I'm just sitting, just want to, and then they don't want to be disturbed. And then those that I did kind of inspire, and then I was like, this is what we can do with data science, and they're like, actually, I'm just going to sit and meditate, and that's fine, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be not accessible and not open to whatever stimulus is out there, but I want to apply that same aspect of mindfulness and awareness and consciousness to everything I do. So that's why, I'm kind of downgrading the efforts that are personally from my side happening in Bhutan, and heading back to Australia to continue with what I've experienced and what I've learned here in Bhutan, but to really apply it and bring it to the world, and not have it locked in a cave and for whatever, personal or cultural.
I comment?
Yeah, yep, sure.
Something that you said broke my silence, about bringing happiness to the world. I mean, that sounds a bit stuffy to me, actually. Think about all these Maharishi so-and-so in Oregon, with 12 Rolls Royces and, showing sex and, all this sort of stuff as a way of achieving, I don't know, enlightenment or happiness or whatever you want to call it. And it seems to me that happiness is self. I mean, I wouldn't look at you, I wouldn't listen to you, and I wouldn't say that in interacting with you that I'm interacting with a happy person. I don't get it. I see a person, who's on a journey, like all the rest of us. And I also hear that happiness seems to be looked at as an end product, like the object of, we spoke about that the other day too, right?
Sure.
Of pursuit. Mm-hmm. Whether you catch it or not, I've seen people so involved in misery, seeking something other than misery by envisioning something they can't even describe. Right?
Yeah.
A couple of other notes I made here. It sounds to me like happiness is available in a something for nothing venue, right?
Okay.
You get happiness, but it doesn't give you anything, because the moment that you have it, it's fleeting.
Sure.
right? It's gone because you can't hold on to it, whatever the hell it is. I don't know. I know what joy is. I know what frustration, all these emotional feelings that we all have, but it's sort of like pie in the sky to me. And I don't believe in it. It's like, religion. It just pulls you along, and then you get to be somebody's servant for your entire lifetime, and the rewards come after you're dead. Wow, great deal. Send me 100,000 of those. I can use them, right? Because I'll put you to work following some kind of illusion or delusion about something that's going to happen that you never experience, right? And so, and I think there to stay at least part-time with the word of inspiration is they're giving, they're saying, hey, look, let's go catch a big fish, man. I know this spot, and you spend all your day fishing and you never catch anything. So you come home and you talk about, the fish, the one that got away. And it's like, that's a lie. And you're just sort of fooling yourself into keeping up something easy and lazy, like sitting in a cave. Because if you had something, if you were an inspired person or something along that line, you'd be out doing something. Even if your whole thing was to bring happiness to the people. Yeah, I'm here to do that. And if you didn't have an interest in me for having been the guy who sat in the cave for 3 years, I wouldn't be anywhere either. And I'm going to invite you to I guess a cave somewhere in some mountain somewhere. We got caves around here too. Or is it, like an Indian vision quest? You go and they dig a hole and cover you up, and then, you still can walk around. Or lay down or whatever, you can get into these tanks like in Amsterdam, where all your sensory deprivation tanks, sort of like, being on fast forward. Okay, let's get through this in an hour. If you don't go nuts or see lights flashing all around your face. And I think there's a real disparity between a guy, and I'm being critical of His Majesty, that would say, even though it was catchy, I'm more interested in the gross national happiness of my people. That, well, maybe you should have been a little bit more interested in, bettering the lifestyles of people instead of, I don't know how the government makes its money, one way or another, I guess selling worms and tourism, and they tax the hell out of people, and only a very few people at the top who control things actually benefit from the G&H. Whoops, did I say G&H? I meant GDP, because they're wealthy people there. Sure. And like most wealthy people I know, there's still poor people with money. They don't know what to do with it, right? And it seems to me that and I'm coming to hopefully to a point where I think inspiration does not have a single definition. I think that there is infinite number of levels of inspiration. Okay, am inspired to write, but why and what is it? How am I going to benefit from it? Or is it just a flushing? Or, does it make me feel happy? Or, does it open me up? There's something about these different levels of inspiration that border between the common, right? Of which we may all be inspired to. I can't even think of anything common that we're all inspired to. Let's just choose a no-brainer, to be free, right? Sure. Well, that's a nice idea, but what inspires me to be free? Is it the conflict of people who have chosen not to be free because it's easier and lazier? And, even those people in this country who have been freed were never free because they never freed themselves. Now they just depend on the government. If it's not a plantation owner, well, it's going to be the government, but they haven't changed in 150 years or so. or maybe what, the 19 or 1619 project or whatever. I've been here for 400 years, and it looks like a sort of a mindset that somebody else is going to take care of me. And then because of that, this entitlement program, I think, wow, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to sit around and get drunk, have sex, sit in the shade, eat fruit, and play music and dance and whatever. And that's going to be, is that happiness? Is that fulfillment? Because every time we get to the word happiness, I get sidetracked, right? There are so many, I don't even know what the word means. And I've gotten to the point where I just don't even want to talk about it anymore. I want to talk about something more real, some source. I want something that's like a fountain, right? And I when I envision inspiration, I see inspiration as a fountain. Now, what is it? And maybe it's true for you, I don't know, where you're constantly receiving something divine, right? Something worthy of mentioning.
Sure.
That is maybe only abstract to some people or unattainable to other people, or requires me to get off my butt and do something. Whatever the requirements are to drink from that fountain, to be, mentally engaged, to be concerned with the society around me and my place in it, and a somewhat of a leadership position. Because I think when something is divine or has a divine nature to it, it doesn't belong to everybody. So much for people are created equal. It's nonsense. People may be created equally, sperm and egg, zygote, whatever, however you look at it, but it's got to be the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. And then what does that saying inspire people to do? So I'll go back to my initial statement, which is, I think that pretending to be inspired is a lure. Now, if you're Elon Musk, for instance, right? It would be a prime example. Most of us know who the man is. Okay, so he said yesterday, I'm going to buy Coca-Cola and put the cocaine back in Coca-Cola. All right, well, that might be interesting, and now the government and Biden, they're all trying to, kill his purchase of Twitter, because they're afraid of free speech, which they took such calculated efforts to, destroy. And now they want to destroy him because they think that everybody has freedom of speech, which is one of the founding principles of the country. But then they're saying, well, do you think everybody should be free to speak? It's like, that's not the question. We're not debating who gets to be free and who doesn't get to be free. Well, you may say something and it's like, okay, I get it. We're dragging a lot of Democrats into this because they're afraid that they're going to be losing power. So something, if I may, inspired Elon Musk to make an effort to restore, and I'm speaking in shorthand here, the freedom of speech. Not, you want to talk about oligarchs. Okay, let's talk about, a few American oligarchs, right, who control everything. And once you start losing control, you start freaking out. Well, what inspired Elon Musk to do whatever he did, whether it's SpaceX or now Twitter and God knows the other things that he's been involved in? Where does that man, and I think we're kind of reaching a dry hole in terms of what we're defining and what we're pursuing, and in terms of inspiration, but what inspires a person like him to do what he does? Take a guess. Just take a guess.
Yeah, so ultimately it is just a guess, but it'd be great to get his answer to that question. From my side, and the little I've kind of absorbed in the knowledge I know or have obtained, I guess, from watching him and seeing his work, I think he's very driven about he kind of sets himself these goals and then just goes for them. He can't say like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. Or I mean, things do not work out, but he always just gets the solution worked out. Like that one story I heard, and when you know, establishing Tesla, the cars, and how everything was going wrong, and so, but he worked like constantly, other than sleeping, on that to make it work. And yeah, stories of him like being in the factory and sleeping on the floor to ensure that he's there to wake up and continue working for 3 years or something like that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going back to living in a cave. I guess that was his cave, and yeah, he had that to just push himself, or to be inspired to do whatever it was that was driving him. And yeah, I mean, these are the things we were talking about the other day, the I guess in that consciousness that comes in and says, hey, this is important, and this is what needs to be happening, and this is what you can do, and being open to listening to that. And for everybody, I believe it's very individual. So as long as you have that and be aware of the driving motivations, I guess is another word to throw in the mix, then yeah, continue with your practice. It's like he doesn't have a job, he just has a daily practice, and that's where I want to get to as well. It's not that I work because I got to get this, you know, money and pay the bills. It's just that I don't have a job, I have a practice. My practice is data science, and I guess that, you know, has been when I come to Bhutan and think about, okay, happiness, yeah, let's, how do we increase individual happiness and organizational happiness and national happiness, global happiness? It's a little bit off path. All I really want to do is practice being a data scientist, and that's where my true happiness comes from. And it gets distorted when I overthink it, of trying to bring in a measurement of happiness and kind of really dig it in analytically, like I've seen the nation kind of decrease the amount of happiness by trying to measure happiness. So I think for me, and anyway, and individually, it's just about choosing a practice. And perhaps going back to, yeah, Elon Musk, this is perhaps what he does as well, is just goes about his daily practice in a way that is inspiring to himself, and it's so happens to be inspiring to many others. And that's why he's gained the wealth that he's gained, because other people feel what he's doing is worthwhile and value creating, and use his solutions, which then rubs off, the value rubs off onto him. And now he's the, I guess, yeah, reportedly the richest man in the world, and able to afford $44 billion to buy another company that he's inspired to buy and take in a direction where he wants to.
Let me ask you a question. Let's make a statement. Is that or maybe both? Do you feel that there is a practical nature behind inspiration? You mentioned Elon Musk, and he just sticks with it until he works the problem out.
Yeah.
Right. So I believe in the little bit that I know about him, and I find him extremely confusing to listen to.
Sure.
I mean, he's not very straightforward. He's sort of like, I don't know, lost in an acid trip when I look at him or listen to him speak. But apparently he's inspired, other people as well to follow him, which is, a leadership. I don't even know if I would make it dirty by calling it leadership, certainly in my life, I've met a lot of people and been one of those people many times who is inspired, let's say, as a musician or as an actor. Something in the context of my association with, let's say, a play, or even writing a play, which I've done that as well, is what is it that inspires me? And you and I have had many instances in doing that where we're writing the book of life, which for me continues, right? I've been working on this for a couple of years now. What inspired me, if I place it in context, to begin a book of life? And I think that came from a source of frustration that there have been so many people in my family, let's say, people who were related genetically, who amounted to nothing. I mean, for argument's sake, we can take a left turn on that one and go all day. But many of those people never felt like they had ever made anything of themselves either. And I kept thinking, part of my inspiration for wanting to do what I wanted to do with the resources that I had available was to make sure that, this is the book of life, that people had some idea about what life was going to hand them in general terms. And we can look at philosophy, stoicism, whatever, and start looking at that from a different way. But and I do not consider biblical or religious texts to be books of life. No, I do not. It's far too poetic, may I say, to really have any clear answers, and in the mysticism of writing, whatever shorthand they're taking from God whispering in their ear, it's a fantasy to me. And whether the guy was eating mushrooms or something happened to him, or who knows, LSD in rye bread in the dark ages, and these people are inspired or infused with chemical changes or poetic idealism to instill those practices that any family, I believe, should be able to give the newest born as a way forward. Not just to say, okay, son, here are the keys, the factory is yours. It's like, that's not what it's about. I mean, it can be, but if it's your factory, then, there has to be some sense of progression as to where it's going. And so a little like you wanted to bring something to other people. I didn't. I wanted to work in a venue where I could find out what I'm capable of.
Right.
And usually that was a very trying situation. That inspiration for me had to be manufactured. But in terms of, there's certain many levels of fulfilling the daily task of what needs to be done now. I think from my own personal point of view, I think that what was it Edison said, right? It's 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. So you got an idea and you want to see it come true as best you can. I don't think everybody, finishes everything that they're inspired to do, but they try. Vanderbilt, you name them, whoever they are, and they have to leave it undone. Even if you're Bill Gates and you decide, okay, well, that's that. It's like, yeah, you lost your interest. You lost your inspiration because you achieved your objective.
Right.
So maybe your objective was not so divine after all. And it's just like he was hammering out keys to prisons. As we can see, you as a data scientist, right? You see people who spend their whole life staring into a 3x4-inch screen. Right. And they're not being inspired. They may think they are, or they're maybe being teased, or they're mentally active, or however you look at it. But inspiration, as I said, to me, is something divine.
Right.
Something that not everybody can do, will do, wants to do, whatever. And I think I don't like summum bonum. I don't like the common good. I don't do it for the common good. I do it for me. And it's not like I'm looking for some financial reward. As Elon said, it's not about the money. He happens to have the money. Okay. And so he's the richest man in the world. That means nothing more than he's the poorest man in the world. Sure. Because actually when you're poor, you have to try harder than when you're rich. At least I believe so. And I'm not a rich man in terms of those kinds of riches that these guys have. So how do they turn to inspiration as a practical measure? Is it to continue to build? Maybe Donald Trump is looking at it, I want to bring happiness to the whole world, or the king, or the Dalai Lama, or Buddha, or whoever, What are you doing? I think the Buddha didn't try to do everything for mankind. It was the people who wanted to capitalize. Even Paul, meeting on the road to Damascus, turns, this supposed appearance on the road into a religion, and you get all kinds of stuff out of that. The Anunnaki, Sumerian kings, were they consumed with the idea of accumulation of assets? Or is it power? Is power inspiring? Like Nietzsche said, that happiness is the free exercise of power. Okay. Does having power inspire you? And if it does, what inspire you to do what? Is it related to your own sense of freedom, which a person may get from sitting in a cave, or your own sense of freedom because you say, you know what, I can buy anything, so what? That doesn't seem to me to be very fulfilling. I can buy, the defunct post office in DC and turn it into a great hotel, and then what? There has to be something deeper within the person as a means of expression. Sure. To express themselves, to find some fulfillment in whatever it is they do. And like this place I'm working on here, one thing leads to another. I look back and I think there had to have been some kind of great design in my head, right? Because I didn't sit down on paper and say, this is what I want wings on my barn, and this kind of business, I want a bridge over the driveway. One thing led to another. And I'm curious about where it's going. And you mentioned that earlier, curiosity, right? Yeah. Which killed the cat, of course. But still, maybe the cat has 9 lives, not just one. Yeah. So we keep going, following that, our curiosity, following our desire to fulfill ourselves, to achieve, to be as the gods are. That's why I call it something divine, and now I just see people so absorbed with the common, right? And they don't reach for it because it's not easy, because it's not fun, because it's, you have to learn to deal with failure. And if you don't value the lessons that you learn from finding all the ways in which it doesn't work, then I would say that you're truly not inspired. Right.
Right.
And of course, we make mistakes. And I don't know about you, but when I start a new project, by the time I finish it, I know what I should have known before I started it.
Yeah.
So I think that inspiration, I think we control inspiration, if only we would see it that way.
Right.
You have so many writers who sit down, I can't write. Is why not? Is your hand broken? You can write, so write something. And for me, it's the connect between what are you thinking? Just write down what are you thinking. It's not going to be War and Peace, right? It's just going to be what, and then don't write and edit at the same time. Just create.
Yeah.
Right. And creation, of course, is the purpose of life for me. You always have to be involved in creating something, even if you're merely altering it until the source of inspiration is made clear to you.
Great. Yeah.
And then you could follow it, even if it just comes in dribs and drabs.
Sure.
You know, nobody said that inspiration is a long silver line, you know, that you just follow and it, you know, keeps you bright and happy and intelligent. I think it takes work. Inspiration takes work to become inspired and to remain inspired.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's how I see it as well. I think it's very easy to become uninspired, or like you might think you're inspired because you're going to get up, you got to get to work, you got to, you know, earn some money to pay bills, and that's your inspiration. But then there's the divine inspiration that you mentioned, that kind of, if you are able to get in touch with that, then that, I guess, you know, for an individual, and I can only speak for myself, is more satisfying, it's more fulfilling. But when I kind of get distracted, or I don't know, we talked about this community consciousness, this kind of mainstream direction of the, you know, these whoever's driving them, messages about this is what you need to do as a person, you know, go to school, get a job, all that stuff. That message is not coming from a divine space. It's just coming from the way the world is right now. But to get in touch with that divinity and that inspiration that comes from that, that's when I know, yeah, I'm having fun and I'm happy and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And that's the practice that I want to continue every day, each and every day, is just take a practical application. First of all, to become aware of that divine inspiration, and then take the step, perform the process that I'm inspired to do. And for me right now, it's data science and being the best data scientist I possibly can be.
But if you achieve that, I think you would lose your inspiration. Right. Yeah. I think that to go back, two more words about practical inspiration, is that I think more often than not, we become complacent, right? Sure. Which you mentioned now repeatedly about getting a job, paying the bills and things like that. Yeah. I've never lived my life to that purpose. Sure. Well, I got to get a job because I got to pay the bills. You know, no, it's like, I know somewhere looming in the back of my mind is this biblical phrase that said, God will provide, right? It's not God, it's not a person, you know, doling out welfare checks. It's that infinite, that infinity, which exists within myself, that teaches me to discover, utilize, develop the potential in which, you know, and I think that maybe it's the law of thermodynamics, but I think that there's kinetic energy and potential energy. So whatever is not kinetic would be potential. And all we have to do is to transfer potential energy into kinetic energy. And I think to be divine, that must come through self-inspiration. It's not anybody else's job first, it's mine. And I'm not sitting and waiting for it. So for me, and I hope I'm reaching a conclusion here, is that it's inspiration comes to me as I seek solutions. And in seeking solutions, my inspiration grows.
Right. Great.
So I don't think, that we can expect anybody else to do that for us.
No.
It's my job, man.
That's
My
right.
job.
That's right.
Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
No.
Okay. Well, I think we've done our thing.
Yeah.
For tonight, for this session. And I was looking at some other notes I have, organized guy, huh? That we talked about inspiration, and then I proposed that at the end of this short series that we could possibly, if you agree, address the issue of relationship forming, right? Interaction.
Yeah.
And then as a way of, I don't know, compiling all of this terminology and the practices into a worthwhile cause or a worthwhile pursuit.
Sure.
Which I would hope, even though some sessions have been more inspirational than others, to see if ending with the relationship, going outside of ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
At this point in time, which actually we're doing in point by, putting it on YouTube.
Exactly.
Much thanks to you, to be able to solicit relationship formation.
Yep.
And we've preempted that with, talking about different esoteric topics, right? Which were rather general and meant to be general in order to attract a certain level of intellectuality, that we could use these topics as a basis for establishing maybe a baseline. Right. Of not we try to make them sound simple, but only by breaking them down into their component parts. And maybe we're wrong. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
But along the way, all these various solutions and proposals and whatever you want to call them all go into how you and I, or how we and others can establish relationships,
Exactly,
and achieve a common goal.
That's it.
Would be nice.
Sure. Yeah.
All right then. So do you agree that tomorrow we'll talk about relationships?
Definitely.
And then we can take a 48 and chill out for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to
do some things like that.
Yeah. No, that sounds great.
Wonderful. Okay. I'll give you last word, Troy.
Well, no,
if you want.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, we come this way. I think everything, well, particularly today, the inspiration, we has to start from the individual, but then when you are out there taking action and applying whatever you're inspired to do, it's going to, or can do, I guess, affect other people. And this is the impact that it has. And going back to Elon Musk, because the aspect of him having so much money in the world means that he's inspired a lot of people, because that money has come from some other individuals. So the more you can, history shows, inspire and build value creating relationships with other individuals in terms of monetary measurement anyway, your value is going to grow. So yeah, looking forward to the next discussion topic around relationships and see what we're inspired to create.
Good enough.
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Yep. Thank you, Troy.
Bye.
Bye.